Welcome back to another episode of Rebuttal. My name is Rebmasel, your host. This episode is a doozy. It's crazy. It has a little bit of everything, I think. Intrigue, body hiding, body snatching, drugs, family drama, the IRS, the usual, I would think. This one is a crowd pleaser. I will say that is why, if you were watching on my YouTube, I do have my upside down sunglasses very much on. It does get me excited. It gets me jazzed. It gets me pumped. It gets me ready to go for the debauchery, for the calamity, for the chaos. I literally think this entire podcast could be named after this case. And it would really sum it all up. I have briefly touched on this episode. When I say briefly, I mean very briefly in whatever, I'm pretty sure like a 3-minute TikTok could have done for me, which was decidedly not enough. So, if you feel like this one feels a little familiar to you, get over it and just keep listening and pretend like you haven't heard it before. Thank you so much for your understanding. This case is about a man. It's not funny. This case isn't funny. I feel like I have yet to have like the Scream Queen like police come in yet to be like, this isn't funny. These are real people, real lives. I know, but like, what else are we supposed to do with this information? Like, what else am I supposed to do? How can I not have a good giggle, a good laugh, a good cheerio? You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have a cheerio. I'm going to have a cheerio there, mate, about some facts that I find just a little bonkers. And if you are somehow one in a million, drop in a million, one of the family members affected by this story, that is so sad and I'm so sorry. But also, are you good? Like, what in the actual fuck? This is the type of like family secret bullshit that you would hear at a family reunion. You know what I mean? You know, when you find out some family bullshit that happened, okay, and you roll up to a family reunion gathering and you've heard some inklings about like how Uncle Ben is a little weird or whatever. And then you find out 10 years later, oh yeah, he killed his wife in the backyard once. We think he did it, but he said that she was ran over by a deer. So we just stuck with that. That's why you were never allowed to be in a room alone with him. Anyways, and like, that's it. And you go, what the fuck? Like, what? Tell me more. And no one will say anything. And your entire family has just perpetuated this rumor throughout the city that there's random rogue deer just mowing people down just to give a backstory for your uncle who definitely killed his wife in the backyard 20 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? This is the kind of story that feels like that. It feels like we're a part of this family, and hearing it secondhand later on and going, wait, what the fuck? That's what happened? That's why grandma didn't get the apartment building that she was supposed to. I thought that, but whatever. So our family drama begins pretty normally, okay, with a son named Taruk. Taruk was born in 1968 as the only biological child of Hassan and Ann Jackson. Okay, Hassan's last name is Ben-Ali, Ben-Ali. Yes, I thought of Prince Ali from Aladdin as well. No, there's no connection, any of which that I can find or see or hear or smell. So that's all I have for you. Taruk, his parents were together for about 30 seconds before they divorced. Did not work out, but they did try to co-parent for the next 34 years, okay? While Taruk was growing into a bouncing baby 34-year-old. Hassan was a savvy businessman, right? Hassan, the dad, okay, here, was really getting after it. He was doing what all savvy, successful, really great, notable, famous, notorious businessmen in America do, which is hide from the IRS and get into some shady deals, right? And transfer property in such a way as to not have to report things to the IRS. Now, obviously, right, par for the course in America. Hassan had owned a lot of properties over the years, okay, and had gone through some financial troubles, as one does before you reach the top. So one of the things that Hassan did, of course, just like everyone else, to get out of his tax troubles, his tax problems, to get the IRS off of his ass, right? Which they are on all of ours. It is tax season, so get after it. He transferred one of his properties to his son, Taruk, okay? This property is an apartment building located at 2235 Ashby Avenue in Berkeley, California. Look how cute and gorgeous it is, right? Now, this Ashby property, okay, I'm going to call it the Ashby apartment, okay, the Ashby Apartments. He had transferred it to Taruk in approximately 1993, okay, presumably to avoid losing the property to the IRS. But in reality, he had transferred that property to his son in name alone, right? He had wrote up the papers so that it basically let Hassan run, manage, control, make every decision ever about the property, except for the fact that Taruk technically owned it. Okay, this is called tax evasion. This is a crime. Don't do this. Or do. I don't really care. I'm not your attorney. Remember, this is not legal advice. So in 1990, okay, that was in 1993 when that transfer takes place. Okay, Taruk is about 25 years old, living large, definitely has not a single fucking thing to do with this apartment building, but it's in his name, right? He owns that shit. He definitely owns it. Everything was fine. Everything was good for Hassan, mostly. Taruk did have some drug problems, okay? He had a history of drug abuse. He had some charges on his record for drug-related things. But Hassan, being the really great number one dad that he is, really didn't give a shit. He didn't care. He was just like, as long as I have my Ashby apartment in Berkeley, I'm doing good. I'm living large and I'm vibing, right? I'm a landlord and I'm raking in that dough. I'm raking that rent every month. So basically, Taruk, right, through his struggles, eventually does get clean, okay, around 2002. And around the time he got clean, he met a beautiful woman. Her name was Wendelin Wilburn, okay? She goes by Wendy. And Wendy, right, really did it for him. And she kept him clean and they fell in love, all right? And like any number one best dad in the world, Hassan was pissed. Hassan was livid. He hated Wendy. He was not about Wendy. He did not want a single thing to do with Wendy. And this wasn't just something that came out in court documents later. Wendy on the record was like, his ass fucking hated me. Like full on, despised me openly. And if you've ever had a monster-in-law, I'm sure you can relate. There was really no secret about it. He tried to convince Taruk up until and through the wedding day to not marry her. Literally was greeting guests as they walked into the venue, right, to go get their buffet and their stale fondant cake, and would turn to Taruk every few minutes and be like, we can back out. We can uncook the salmon right now. We can send all these people home if you would just say no to Wendy. And Taruk, the entire time, faithful man as he is, said, I love Wendy. Why would I do that? I'm going to marry her. I am clean. I am sober. Wendy is beautiful. It's going to happen. The main reason Hassan gave, okay, for opposing the marriage was not so much about Wendy's personality, was not really her name at all, was not really her vibe, her culture, her mood, her moment. It had everything to do with Hassan thinking that Wendy was only trying to marry Taruk for the Ashby apartment building, so that she could get a piece of that because it was in Taruk's name. And I mean, fair, right? Fair assessment. Women marry for money all the time. Most of the time, I would even say. I mean, have you seen men, right? Sometimes there's not much else to be had. But again, I think that's a little judgmental. I think it's a little rude to say. I also think it's kind of one of those things where, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Hassan, okay? You avoided some felony tax, right? Seizures by the IRS, by the government in 1993 when you transferred that property over to your son, which was obviously fraudulent as fuck. And you did it anyway, and you got away with it. Okay, congratulations. You didn't lose the property and you're still raking in the cash and the dough. And Taruk literally has nothing to do with it except for it being his name. So, like, maybe you should really have thought about the fact that your son might fall in love and maybe your luck was going to run out, right? Maybe you should have just been fucking nice. Maybe just be nice to your daughter-in-law, right? Like, maybe she'll let you, like, get a cut. Maybe she'll let you help manage the apartment complex. Like, I feel like the angle of just being a huge asshole to your daughter-in-law, who's definitely standing to inherit the entire fucking apartment building if something happened, hint, hint. Like, maybe that should have been the angle. Maybe that should have been the play. I don't know. As your lawyer, sometimes you can kill them with kindness or, like, not kill them at all. At the time that Wendy and Taruk married, Wendy was definitely aware that Taruk had drug problems. He had a history, right? But that he was all clean, all good. She testified that, when they got married, August 3rd, 2002, no drug issues, no drug problems. And throughout their marriage, they didn't have any issues or problems with that until sometime early in 2004. So about 2 years, less than 2 years after they got married, Taruk did relapse into the drug scene a little bit. Okay. And then he disappeared. You heard that right. He disappeared. Weird, right? That he had been clean for all of these years and now all of a sudden they get married, and a few years after they get married, Taruk suddenly relapses and then disappears all in like a couple months' time. See, to me, it's smelling a little Seabiscuit. It's smelling a little deep sea fishing. It's smelling a little ocean dive. Fishy. Wendy was on a business trip in Las Vegas on June 8th, 2004, when she communicated with Taruk by telephone for the very last time. Over the next 2 days, Wendy repeatedly tried to call Taruk from Las Vegas but got no answer. When she returned from her trip, she called Hassan to find out if he knew where Taruk was. Hassan told her Taruk had decided to leave her and start a new life somewhere else. He told similar stories to Taruk's mother and to others who inquired about Taruk's whereabouts. But he specifically told people, no, I swear to God, he literally just wanted to start a new life. Yeah, I don't know. Super weird, crazy, right? Like, he just got married to you, all this stuff. Yeah, totally new life that he started, not here, somewhere else. Somewhere just else, right? Because that tracks. Wendy testified that she did not believe Hassan, right? She didn't believe him and made attempts to locate Taruk, as a newlywed wife does, but neither Wendy nor anyone else, including his mother, reported Taruk's disappearance to the police. Report people missing. Can we do that? Report them missing. Even if you think, oh, maybe he did, or you know what I mean? Like, totally start a new life somewhere else. Maybe he totally left me and it's super embarrassing for me. Totally, for sure, whatever. The worst case scenario is so often the scenario in the case that you might as well go for it. You might as well try it out and see. And having, a single person jump skippity-doo-dah-day over to Hassan's house, knock, 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 and say, hey, what are the vibes? Maybe that would have made things a little different, right? Maybe wouldn't have delayed justice for so long, but here we fucking are. Okay, Hassan said Taruk bounced and everyone believed him. Over the next 4 years, that's right, 4 years. Between June 2004 and December 2008, Hassan continued to manage Taruk's apartment building in Taruk's name, the Ashby apartment, collected rents, forged Taruk's name on checks drawn from Taruk's bank accounts, of course, and refinanced the property in the amount of $600,000 by forging Taruk's signature and the signature of a notary. With no one even wondering what was happening, no one inquiring, no one, including Wendy, including his mom, and no one really caring at all. And I'm not saying that it maybe was as out in the open, out and about as it appears, but it seems like it was fucking out in the open and out and about, right? And they're still married. Wendy, okay, our favorite fast food chain, and Taruk are still has been tied, has not been undone, okay? It has not been unwound. I, for sure, right after the grief and confusion, maybe fear, maybe loss, maybe sorrow of thinking my husband up and left me while I was on a business trip to Vegas, okay? I would maybe after all of that, or maybe in the middle of that, have raised my hand at a certain point and been like, wait, anyways, what about his money? Like, what's that about? Can, you know what I mean? Like, can I like apply for a divorce maybe and get some dollars, get some moolah? And nope, nothing. I would have been a grieving wife for about 30 seconds before I started asking cues. And I don't think that has anything to do with me being an attorney. I think that has everything to do with me wanting to get at least one W out of every L that I take, right? Like, I want at least a little W, right? I'm going to win. I'm always going to get a W regardless of the situation, even if it is under the guise of an L. That is my mantra in life, and I think I'm going to stick to it. Thank you so much. So none of this, mind you, none of the real story would have come out if number one dad would have just kept his mouth shut, by the way, which is also definitely a lesson in how keeping your fucking mouth shut can really hide a lot of nefarious activities, as any lawyer knows. And also, even though you might tell your friend who's a lawyer some crazy shit, it might not necessarily mean that friend who's a lawyer who you called is listening to you tell some crazy fucking story, and that everything you tell them is protected by attorney-client privilege. Sometimes we can just be spoken to like people. I know. Crazy. Super crazy. So in November 2008, Hassan calls who he thought at the time was his attorney. Okay, his attorney. It was literally just his homie, his friend who happened to be a lawyer, and asked to meet with him. Okay, he was like, let's hang out, let's meet. I have some shit to talk. I have some tea. I have some things to talk to you about. Can only hope that there was alcohol in front of this attorney who had to hear what he was about to hear, because Lord have mercy. Hassan, our number one dad, informed the attorney that Taruk, his son, had in fact not up and left and started a new life elsewhere. He had in fact died in 2004 of a drug overdose. Okay? And that Hassan, number one dad, had found his son Taruk dead in a hotel room of an overdose in 2004. But of course, right, while Wendy is on her business trip and, you know, his son is shooting up in a hotel room, Hassan, when he saw his dead son's body lying there, thought, how is this going to affect my bottom line, right? Like, what is this going to do for me and my assets and my property, my Ashby apartment complex that I love so much, that I'm collecting rents on, that just got renovated. We love that. The tenants are happy. They're nice, right? Like, I love being a landlord. I love being a lord over land. All right. How is this going to affect me? So he stared at his son's body, his son's overdosed body, and said, you know what? I don't want to report this. No, I do not. I am afraid of losing my lovely Ashby apartment complex. I very much am. I don't want to do that. So what he did do is he took Taruk's body to the property, to the Ashby complex, right? I can only assume it was newly renovated, cute and fun and flirty and fresh. And you would think, oh, maybe the property was empty. No, it wasn't. People were living there in this apartment complex. Number one dad takes Taruk's body out of the hotel room into a vehicle, drives it over to the Ashby property, to the apartment complex. Beautiful, awesome, gorgeous, with all of the tenants still living there. It's not a very big building, as you can see, right? Not a lot of space for a storage room or area of the building. And he puts his son's body behind the wall of a storage area inside the building. He hides his son behind a wall in this apartment complex that he loves so much that he does not want to lose because, again, money, money, money. And you know, he thinks if I report my son dying, this is not so bueno, because of course, you know, Taruk, instead of Taruk's assets going to me, which they definitely should because I am number one dad, DO, they're going to go to his wife. Right, they're going to go to his wife. The way that California scheme works, they're going to definitely go to his wife or his child. So I'm not about that. I'm not vibing with that. I'm not about it. So he's telling his friend / lawyer, all of this, right? And the lawyer, I can only assume, is like this. What? And I've had situations, okay? I've had fucking situations where clients have told me some shit where I literally am like this. Right. Right. No, yeah. Right. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't do something like that in that situation? No, yeah, I can't. No, I'm not. I'm not judging you at all. No, of course not. Of course I'm not. I do think that we need to plan a little. I think we do need to plan, not in really like a bad way, really more of like a planning way, right? Like, I am your wedding planner, but your life planner, right? And it just rained on an outdoor wedding. The wedding being your life, and the rain being acid. Okay, so let's try to game plan here. Let's plan a game. And here, right here in this scenario, I can only assume the attorney was like, "Oh my God, amazing. Okay, perfect. Awesome," right? Like, there has to be a point where your eyes glaze over halfway through that conversation and you're just like, you know what? Like, I am outside of my body right now. I am not listening to this. I am currently questioning why I didn't go to medical school instead of fucking law school. What the fuck was that about? For these 4 years that he had kept this secret, right? He hid Taruk behind a wall of that building. No one had known. No one had smelled. No one had complained. I'm not kidding. You hear about, right? Like, nobody can hide a body. Like, everyone always smelled. Apparently, in an apartment fucking complex with all those fucking people in this fucking building, okay, nobody was like, that's weird. Maybe it's because they're college students, right? Berkeley campus, like living near Berkeley. Maybe they were like, everything smells, okay? How am I supposed to know it's a dead body and what isn't? But like, it does give you the heebie-jeebies. It does give you the little tickly wigglies thinking about, like, why did no one know? Why did no one smell it? And it does make you think, wow, how many bodies are around and buried and behind walls in the apartment complex that I'm in? Anyone's in, you know? Probably a lot. Yep. Enjoy that. Probably a lot. So you would like to very much think that Hassan called up his friend / attorney because the guilt had been eating him away for 4 years, right? He finally came to his senses, as people do, normal people do, as the majority of the population does. And that's why everyone gets caught for their crimes, right? They just are so guilty that they can't hold it anymore, and they finally come clean. That's not what fucking happened. That's not what fucking happened at all. In this case, the only reason why our number one dad called up his attorney friend and finally came clean is because the unnamed, unknown person who is to this day out in the world somewhere, we have no idea who this person is, no one ever found out, the person who had assisted him in the removal and concealment of his son's body was extorting substantial sums of money from him by threatening to reveal what had happened. So he just wanted to like jump the gun. You know what I mean? He just wanted to like get ahead of it, like PR, as any PR campaign would tell you. Look, we need to get ahead of this, right? This agency, we need to make sure that these people don't try to like disclose your, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to disclose the secret before you. Take that. You have nothing to extort me about because I already told my attorney about it. So what are you going to do? That was the only thing. This individual extorting the fuck out of number one dad was the only thing that kept this story from being concealed forever, from being secret and out of my hands forever. And the only thing keeping this episode alive, really, which is thank you to them, I guess, I think. Yeah, they're still out there. They're still chilling somewhere in Berkeley. Who fucking knows? So this was at the end of November. Okay, end of November 2008. And so, Hassan's attorney basically convinced him, we should probably, get the authorities involved a little. Like, if you're going to be extorted, you might as well get ahead of things, make sure that you can spin the story the way we want to, whatever. So in some way, shape, or form, law enforcement was contacted, okay, and an investigation began. But, and trigger warning, on December 15th, 2008, Hassan committed suicide while Berkeley police officers were visiting the Ashby apartment complex property. Okay, committed suicide. 2 days later, 2 days after number one dad committed suicide, Taruk's body was discovered on the premises, hidden behind a wall. Indeed, at the Ashby apartment complex that was still operating and tenants were still living in. Police believed, after an autopsy was done, that Taruk had indeed died 4.5 years earlier in June 2004, when Wendy was at her work conference in Las Vegas. Based on the court documents surrounding the will and testament, okay, yada yada, which I'm going to get into, it seems like everyone was kind of convinced that he did die of a drug overdose, which, look, right? Like, based on what number one dad was doing, I'm not really honeybee sure that everything that came out of the dad's mouth is going to be 100% accurate, but look, right? Sometimes we just have to use the honor system, and let people use the honor system who should not be allowed to use it. But that's the rule of law for you, right? So as I kind of have, given you clues about, hints about this entire time, you're probably thinking, oh my God, Reb, why does this have anything to do with anything legal? Except for the fact that it's bonkers and crazy, That is because it is actually does not have to do with criminal law. It does not have to do with hiding body law. It does not have to do with really any kinds of felonies at all. I know, crazy. What this has to do is with wills, trusts, and estates. Oh yeah, everyone's favorite class in law school. Now, Hassan, okay, number one dad, left a will. He left a will that was not contested, okay? He gave everything, his sole beneficiary of everything he owned, his whole estate, to his former wife, Anne, all right? But the issue in this case is not so much Hassan, number one dad's will, right? The issue here is Taruk's will. Why, you ask? Oh, okay, I'll tell you. Because Taruk didn't have a will. He did not have a will that anyone knew about until his body was found. Okay, his body was found because in the 2 days after his dad had committed suicide, Taruk's body was found and a will, presumably Taruk's will, was also found with Taruk's body, okay? Like a thin napkin thrown on his son's body as extra insurance for Hassan getting all the money and property that he wanted to keep, okay? Specifically the Ashby apartments, which we've heard fucking enough about, and honestly, in my mind, we're not fucking worth it after all this hullabaloo. So essentially, the reason why, recapping, the reason why Hassan hid Taruk's body is because he didn't want Taruk's ownership of the apartment to then go to his wife and have his wife, oust Hassan, because Hassan is literally the father-in-law from hell. So Hassan wanted to maintain management ownership, the funds, the receipts, the revenue from this property, while Taruk is dead in the fucking floorboards, the wall boards, the sideboards. And even if, okay, he thought, even if somebody gets a little smelly smell, and they find his body, I'm going to throw a typed up will on top of Taruk's body that says, hey, everything that I own goes to my dad anyway. So like we're covered, right? You would think like we're covered. So in this case, okay, you're thinking, well, number one, dad's dead. Like what? Who fucking cares? Everyone's dead in this scenario. Who's fighting? What girls are fighting? Oh, the girls are fighting. Literally the girls. So Taruk's mother, Anne, okay, if Hassan, number one's dad version of the story is the right version of the story, then Anne gets the apartment complex, everything, right? Because basically when Taruk died 4 years prior, according to Taruk's will, quote unquote, everything goes to his dad. Okay? The apartment complex goes to his dad. So then when his dad dies, then his dad gets to say who it goes to, and it goes to Anne. Well, obviously our girl Wendy's like, what the fuck? That's actually not it at all. What in the actual fuck? You know, you find out in a 2-day time period, right? Our girl Wendy finds out in a 2-day time period that the husband that she thought left her, bounced, disappeared, started a new life with someone else, has in the last 4 years actually been dead in the fucking wall boards, the floorboards, the whatever boards. Okay. Your father-in-law who hid him in there to prevent you from touching literally any part of his estate because he fucking hates you that much fucking much. He dies. Okay, he commits suicide, and then he leaves everything to his wife. So he's trying to cut you out of not only the will and the estate, but literally every piece that could possibly be worth anything. Okay, you're raising your hand at the fucking probate proceeding and going, hold the fucking phone. No. Okay, I'm contesting Taruk's quote unquote will. Okay, what the actual fuck? That shit's not kosher. Okay, I should actually get the apartment complex for sure and all of Taruk's assets for sure because everything in that will is a piece of bullshit. Okay, and the will, okay, what did Taruk's will look like? The will, okay, was a typewritten document, Taruk's will, dated August 16th, 2002, 2 weeks after Taruk and Wendy were married and the day before they were to leave town for a honeymoon in Hawaii. All right. So the timing's interesting here because you would think, oh, like wouldn't Taruk and his wife remember like signing a document that said it was Taruk's will like right before they were going to go to their honeymoon? You would fucking think. It stated, the document provided that Taruk's quote unquote wife was to receive all of Taruk's personal property, but that his father, Hassan Ben-Ali, was to receive all other assets. So basically, your personal property, right? Like, that would not include the Ashby apartments. It would not include the major things, right, that are in Taruk's name. No, it would not. It would include nothing. Pretty much nothing. This isn't sketchy at all, right? This type of will isn't sketchy at all. Because why would you name your wife? Why would you ever refer to your wife by name in your own will? You had just gotten married, 2 weeks prior, and you're not, look, you don't know who that wife's gonna be. You know what I mean? Like maybe who really knows? So instead of just saying, hey, Wendy, my wife, is gonna get everything, you just put my wife. That's not sketchy at all, right? That's not weird. That's not bizarre. Like, why would you ever want to put your wife's full name in a legal document purporting to give her your assets? Like, look, it seems normal, right? It seems super fucking not sketchy at all. No, it was really fucking sketchy. Everyone was like, what the fuck is this? Okay, that's weird as hell. Super bizarre, super weird. Why is the only person named in this will your dad's name? A little wonky, a little bizarre, a little bonkers. Okay. Now, the will, okay, in addition to like all this other stuff, okay, basically purporting to give, basically benefiting his dad only. It was signed, allegedly signed by Taruk, had Taruk's signature on it, had Wendy's signature on it, with her address under her signature being the Ashby apartment complex, okay? And then had another witness's signature on it that was just a smudge, just a little ink smudge. And just the witness name was just illegible. It was just a little smudgy smudge. And nobody ever knew who that person was. Identity of that second witness was not to be determined ever. Okay? So, was this a valid will? Was this a valid will? It was typed. Didn't name the wife. just said wife in it, was signed, okay, by our decedent, by Taruk, signed by Wendy, allegedly, with her address under it, Ashby Apartments. We'll get to that. And then smudged by another witness. But like it's all like technicalities, right? Like, is this really that big of a deal? Okay, if you guys think too, what's also funny about wills, trusts, and estates law is before you take the class or before you learn more about it, you think, oh, like wills, trusts, and estates, like signing your will and signing a trust document and signing a will document is so, like, there's so many requirements. It's so important, like, da-da. And yeah, like, it is important to, like, go through the proper procedures, to, like, you know, have the proper people there and, you know, have the document be all fine and dandy, have you know, a wills, trust, and estate attorney, you know, oversee it. But y'all, look at me dead in the eyes, okay? I want you to listen up. I want you to pay attention. In at least the state of California, but also in many states, it's a low fucking bar to prove what is and isn't a will and to actually enforce a will. I promise you that. That is not to say that that is an excuse for you guys to, like, go willy-nilly, Willard-nillard, and not do a fucking thing about making sure your documents are legit and tight and, you know, reviewed by an attorney. No. But what I'm telling you is that there are so many scenarios that someone have been, like, you know, people have been, like, life or death situations. Like, a guy one time was pinned down by a tractor, right? Like, his legs were completely entangled. He was a farmer, and he carved into the side of the tractor, "I leave everything to my wife," like heart, in, like, his own blood. Okay. This is in Canada, in his own blood. That was upheld as a valid will and testament because there was clear and convincing evidence to show that that was his testamentary intent. Okay. That is basically what you need to show. And in California, the general rule is that a will is not valid unless it is either witnessed by being signed during the individual's lifetime by at least two persons, okay, two people who are present at the time of the signing of the will and who understand that the instrument that they sign is actually that person's will, okay? So the main general rule is, one, got to be during the testator's lifetime. You have two witnesses, watch you sign it and understand that they're signing it and know that it's your will. That's it. There's no notary. Everyone thinks there's a fucking notary always involved. No, there's not. Then you don't need a fucking notary involved. You don't need that person. You don't. I could get me and two of my fucking friends. I could bring them here right now, write on a piece of shitty notebook paper. I leave everything to my sister and my cat Simba. Sign it. They sign it. That's Gucci. It doesn't even need to be on pretty paper. I promise you. Okay. But even then, okay, even if I fuck up and I only bring one of my friends over to sign this shit, okay, on accident, or like maybe my second witness is a smudge and no one knows who they are, okay, like our boy Taruk's quote unquote will, that can still be valid because there's basically a mistake provision in California's probate code. It literally says, but like, these are the rules. But like, if you like forget or like you fuck it up, like we're not going to really hold it against you that hard. Because if you fuck up and don't meet all those requirements, the will can still be valid and can still be treated as being all kosher and Gucci if the people who are trying to prove that the will should be enforced prove by clear and convincing evidence that at the time that the person who died signed the will, that they intended the will to constitute that person's will. So essentially, all you have to do is prove by clear and convincing evidence that this shit was definitely what they intended to be their will. Okay? So that's what we're going with. That's the lay of the land. They have to decide whether Taruk's will is valid under either of those two scenarios. One, that it was a valid will, okay, that everyone who signed it, and that the smudge was a person that's valid. Or two, that there was a fuck up in the process, but that Taruk's will was definitely his intent. Where do you think we're going to fall here? I wonder. Some of my cases are a crapshoot, so like, who really knows? Could you imagine if, oh my God, I thought my microphone was on mute this entire fucking time. I would have cried myself to sleep. Okay. So First of all, okay, we have one expert, okay, on the Taruk's will is valid side. He testifies he believed with a high degree of certainty that Taruk's signature on the will was authentic, and that he believed Wendy's signature was, quote, probably genuine, based on comparisons he had made. Probably genuine, like saying it's probably genuine, I feel like isn't the best. Like I don't know if I would want to hear that on the stand so much. Like probably genuine. Probs. He literally says probs. Mabes. Probs. Okay. Now, Wendy's forensic document expert, okay, disagrees. His name is James Blanco, not to be confused with James Franco. Testified that it was, quote, highly probable that the signatures of Taruk and Wendy on the will were not genuine. We have conflicting evidence, okay? Wendy herself testified and denied ever witnessing or signing the will, of course. She did acknowledge that the Wendy portion of the signature was pretty valid, pretty legit. She was like, yeah, there's probably something that I would write, but like I didn't fucking write it, okay? That wasn't me. I never witnessed his will. I didn't know he had a will, and I never signed that shit. She did testify that Hassan had asked her to sign something in 2004, which he told her was a medical release needed in case Taruk required medical attention, which is just a lesson for all of you that, you know, even if a family member says, hey, can you sign this really quick? Read what you fucking sign. Read what you sign. I'm not saying it's her fault. It's absolutely not her fault. You know, if like somehow he got her to, you know, sign what was now allegedly a will, but like read what you have, what people ask you to fucking sign, please. But also, and what I think is even more damning evidence than all of that bullshit, right? Because like, let's say the experts, you know, signature experts, they're all yelling about people's signatures. Who fucking knows, right? Wendy's like, maybe I signed it as Wendy. I don't fucking know. Wendy, under her name on the will, it says that it says the apartment address, right? Basically, like location of like where she lives. The address of the witness. It says Wendy with a heart or whatever. And under it has the address of an apartment in the Ashby apartment complex. She had never lived there. Wendy had never lived in that apartment complex. So why in the frick frack patty whack would she have signed her address as the Ashby apartment complex? She wouldn't have. And she testified to that, right? She said, that is fucking weird. And I've never done that. And she also testified that she actually doesn't use or sign documents with the surname Ben-Ali. She like doesn't do that shit. Like he left, right? He bounced house, allegedly. Taruk left her and she was like, I'm out. She never signed his surname ever. So there's that. This spirals into a hullabaloo about who the fuck wrote this will. Who the fuck wrote it? Okay. And in my mind, right, and the audience's mind and y'all's mind throughout, you guys are like, we know who wrote the fucking will, right? Someone with a mug that says #1 dad on the side of it, right? He wrote that fucking will. But we have to prove under the law that he didn't write the will. The court holds finally that, okay, no, this will cannot be enforced. We cannot hold this will to be valid, even under the harmless error doctrine. The doctrine that I explained to you earlier was the doctrine that basically said, hey, if you fuck up, we'll probably still enforce the will if you can show by clear and convincing evidence that it was Taruk's intent for this to be his final will. There was essentially no evidence that Taruk had ever spoken about his testamentary intentions with anyone. So basically, you know, his final will and testament with anyone. He was only 34 years old. He had never even talked about signing a will. He had never talked about anyone about what would happen if he died. And also, you know, he had never discussed with his wife what his will would be about or what that would be. And obviously, her husband's decision not to provide for her in his will would presumably have been a topic of interest to her, right? That like she would want to discuss and he would probably want to discuss with her. And then apparently didn't. Also, no original copy of the will was ever found. It was like a typed up document and like photocopied, which just makes it even more fucking sketchy. You know what I mean? Like, okay, please be so fucking for real. And also, right, all of the evidence about how bizarre It was that Taruk was found in the wall of his apartment complex, that his dad ran and took all the money from, and definitely didn't want his wife to get a single shred or dime of. And, you know, Hassan, number one dad, would obviously have a financial motive for concealing Taruk's death if a will leaving the building to number one dad did not in fact exist when Taruk died. So if this will was actually legit, the court says, then why the frick frack patty whack would Hassan have put his son in a fucking building and a wall for this long? He probably wouldn't have. He probably wouldn't have. And you know, the whole my wife thing without mentioning her by name, and the whole her putting her address down. Basically, you know, all in all, the court held, look, this was sketchy as fuck. We're going to agree with James Blanco and say that this probably wasn't legit, clear and convincing evidence. The evidence was unclear and it was unconvincing. Although determining whether a will is valid is extremely fact-sensitive analysis, you know, and it can vary case by case. This is one of those cases where it definitely was not enough evidence to show that this was a will that we should enforce, that this will was, you know, definitely written by Taruk and definitely his intent. It was not. So the Court of Appeal, California Court of Appeal, sent that shit back down to the trial court and said, no ma'am, no sirs, you are going to distribute this estate based on our holding that this shit was not kosher. This shit was not bad. My rebuttal on this case, okay, is that everyone should really check who their family, friends, and number one dads are for sure. And also, if your fathers or mothers-in-laws or sisters-in-laws or brothers-in-laws hate you with a burning, fiery, deep, hell-bent passion, you should maybe not believe everything they say. And you should also file a missing persons report if your husband or spouse or wife goes missing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just reaching here. Maybe I'm being too paranoid. But I just think that at the end of the day, trust no bitch. Trust no Hassan. In this case, trust no hoe. And make sure that you have your assets tied up, even at the young age of 34 years old, to be given to the person that you want it to be given to, and not so much given to your tax evading father who has it out for your lovely wife, Wendy, who probably did nothing wrong. And all she did was want to go to Vegas and gamble and have a business venture. This has been a very bizarre episode of Rebuttal. It was all over the place, and that's how we like it. That's how we love it. We want some more of it. If you'd like some more of it, follow us at Rebuttal Pod on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Follow me on TikTok, Rebmasel, Instagram, Rebmasel. Follow us everywhere, okay? We post updates. We have a jolly good time, and I'm looking forward to posting another episode every week until season 1 ends or until someone rips this podcast away from my hands. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Rebuttal Pod. Love y'all.